Hey guys out there, I'm going to talk today about Pluto. I'm studying evolutionary astrology. I've very much done intermediate and I'm now moving on to the next level. And I've been reading Jeff Wolf Green, his book on Pluto, and I'm just going to show it to you. It might look a bit scary, the cover of it, but Pluto. And I'm going to bring up my chart as well in a little while, and I'm going to explain to you what Pluto means to us as human beings. So basically, Pluto is to do with the evolution of our own soul. So what we've got is a way of understanding astrology. We can begin to understand the archetypes and our role in this life and what we're trying to transcend and what we are trying to leave behind and what we're trying to move towards. So Pluto is a beautiful study, and as I study this I will make some recordings on Pluto through the houses, but I'm at a stage where I want to look at Pluto and share what it means in my own chart so that you can then begin to look at your chart and possibly begin to establish what this means for you. So where I'm going to go with this is that I'll start with the beginning of this book, and it's basically Pluto correlates to the soul and evolution. And what is a soul? So we've all got a soul, and some of us believe that we have, and some of us believe that we have not. So it really depends on our beliefs about, you know, the bigger picture, life, the meaning of life, the meaning of death, you know, what happens after we leave here. So for me, I tend to look at things. I'm a Gemini sun, Gemini moon. So the way I look at things is that I look and I see what I believe to be true. And from that, I'll extract the information that I believe that makes sense to me. And that's how my personality works. So each to their own in the grand scheme of things. But I do think for me that I do see something in this. And the reason I say that is very much in my sleep state, that when I go off to sleep at night, I do tend to touch in with other dimensions in my own mind. I see faces, and you know, it might sound scary, but I see in my third eye area, I see what I would consider to be, you know, other realms or other things that I don't see in my everyday to-day life. And I don't see sleep as being any different from our waking life. That's the other thing. I see it feels very interconnected for me personally. So it's not like I get up and do what I have to do and go to sleep. I know that in my sleep time, I'm going on some sort of journey. I'm also being replenished, and that it's soul work, like problems are being solved and worked out during sleep time as well. So here goes. Start again. Pluto correlates to the soul and evolution. What is a soul? According to many spiritual, religious, and metaphysical sources, including the Bhagavad Gita and the Bible, the soul is an immutable consciousness that has its own individuality or identity that remains intact from life to life, in each lifetime, of course. The soul manifests a personality that has a subjective consciousness and unconsciousness. Saturn defines the boundaries of our subjective consciousness, that of which we are consciously aware. Uranus represents the individualized unconscious, and Neptune the collective unconscious. Pluto, the soul itself. Each personality that the soul manifests from lifetime to lifetime has an ego, meaning the moon, and that serves as a focusing agent to create one's own self-image. The moon is similar to the lens in a movie projector. Each personality has an intrinsic nature and orientation that experiences life in its own unique way. Each personality that the soul manifests relates directly to the evolutionary necessities of the soul. The soul, through the personality, must experience life in particular ways in order to grow and evolve. Each personality created is directly linked to past evolutionary and karmic history of the soul. So for me, I see karma, when I think about karma, that's discussed a lot in spirituality and, you know, maybe in some religions as well. I see the soul as not being like, you know, that we have bad things happen to us because of something that we did in our past. And I don't look at it that way. I see it that we're here to evolve. So certain experiences will create situations for our own soul to evolve. And it's quite, you know, a useful way to look at life if we've been through a lot of trauma as well, and pain, because we can see that trauma and pain, which I've had quite a bit of in my early life, it's actually helped me to evolve into the person that I am now. And I'm at a point where I value myself quite greatly, like my experiences, my wisdom, my understanding, my consciousness. And had I not experienced what I'd experienced, I don't know where I'd be at consciously or in my own understanding or wisdom. So I hope that makes sense. This is my own belief, and I understand that each individual is going to see the soul, or the idea of God, for instance, you know, what that means to people. It's going to be individual, and the experience is really indescribable for each of us. I think we can try and, you know, think that how we feel and what we believe is the same as another, but we may have things that are, you know, maybe when we're in discussion with a friend, what a soul is, we may have similarities, but we're going to have differences as well. So it's never a fixed thing, because the ultimate is that we really do not know, but we run with theories. And I found with the archetypes and looking at Carl Jung's work, that I have found that the archetypes and understanding the archetypes of my own chart, the totality of it, that it's helped me to evolve, and it's helped me to decondition that which are the things that I've come in with that seem quite hard for me. So it's a very useful tool, astrology, to evolve and decondition. That's how I see it. So it's not about predicting the future. We have free will. And now I'm going to see if I can find my chart. I'm going to bring it up on screen so that I'm able to share screen. And then from that, I'll be able to talk a little bit more about what is happening with my Pluto. There you go. Hope I didn't lose you there in my trying to find it. Okay, so you can see here that I've got, this is my birth chart. And when I was born, I have Pluto in the 9th house, okay? So let me show you here. So see this little red dot here? Okay. So I have Pluto conjunct Uranus in Virgo at 15 degrees. So it's in my 9th house at birth. And currently, if you look at my chart, you've got Pluto. It's moved from here all the way around to here. And I was born on the 21st of May 1966. So I was 52 May just gone. So Pluto has taken 52 years to get to this point from the point it was when I was born. So for each of us, we're going to have a Pluto placement, and then we're going to have what's called a transit, and the transits are on the outside of the chart. Okay, and I'm going to concentrate on Pluto for this video. So what I found was that clearly from the age of, you know, let's say baby, growing up, 10th house, it would have gone through maybe 20, age 20, age 30, age 40, and then age 52. And now it's in my 2nd house. So really defining what that means to me. So what is the 2nd house about? What I've got that I can tell you is that the 2nd house Pluto is about self-reliance and self-sufficiency and survival. It's also withdrawal in order to survive, finding our own essence, and it's about limited vision, senses, the body, fertility and inertia, money, resources, valuing oneself, poverty complex and stagnation. So what I want to try and do is, we're going to look at the polarity. The polarity, meaning the opposite, is the 8th house. So you can see that if we go here, it lands in the 8th house, okay? So if I look at the polarity of my Pluto, What I've got is that I want to bring in opening up to others in emotional communication and intimacy, sharing and change. And it's where I will be forced to look at myself and then ask the question, why change? So the values I had 10 years ago, or maybe 5, 6 years ago, have completely transformed and changed. When Pluto was going through my first house, I would very much say it was very much about me, and it was about business, and it was about making money. And that was part of my life that was very focused on myself. And now I'm doing something different. It's about, sharing my knowledge and wisdom out there. And it's not only about money, it's about lifestyle. It's what do I value for myself? What are my needs as well? What does my soul need to evolve? So it's beautiful, the definition of each of the houses. What I'm going to do is also tell you what the 9th house Pluto means briefly, so you can understand. And what I would say is that from this, if you get your own chart and you get the Pluto book, you'll be able to see where you've been, how your soul has been evolving, because nothing stays fixed, nothing is written in stone. We're evolving through the astrology chart. So it says here that individuals, 9th house Pluto, individuals who have Pluto in the 9th house, which is traditionally Sagittarius, by the way, okay? And the ruler of Sagittarius is Jupiter. So it says that individuals who have Pluto in the 9th house or Sagittarius have had the desire and evolutionary need to understand life and themselves in a cosmological, metaphysical, philosophical, or religious context. In the broadest sense, the 9th house and Sagittarius are the archetypes through which humanity has a need to explain its connection to the phenomenological nature of the universe and the world in which we live. So to me, being where I'm at now, it's understandable while I'm into astrology, and why I also look at things, I'll study things, and then I'll rip things to shreds in order to understand them. What works, what doesn't work, what is real, what is not real. The 8th house, the 8th house Pluto is Scorpio, ruled by Scorpio, and that generated the awareness of the larger focus in the universe and the world forces that were sensed and originating outside the individual. Consequently, there is a need to form some kind of relationship to these forces in order to become identified and united with them. In effect, the relationship allowed to the individual to experience these forces directly, and thus to undergo a metamorphosis of his or her personal limitations. So Pluto is about overcoming our limitations. Where I'm interested really now for myself is what Pluto is doing in my 2nd house, because that's currently what I'm working with. So I'm going to explain here. You can see that Pluto is transiting my 2nd house. The other thing I'm going to tell you is that Pluto, from the place it is, wherever it is in your chart at birth, takes 240 years to go right round a astrology chart. So you can see that it's one of the slowest moving planets through our own astrology chart, and it is to do with our soul evolving. So here you go. This is the last bit I'm going to read, and then maybe you can pull out your own chart and see what's going on for you, and check out what Pluto means. You can Google that information, or you can buy this book, which I'll leave a link, Amazon link below, where you can get this book. So Pluto through the 2nd house, this is where I'm at currently. The archetype of or theme of this evolutionary process is one wherein the individual will experience a metamorphosis in how he or she is relating to him or herself, and consequently to others in addition. The process will promote a fundamental re-evaluation of the individual's value system. So I can say that, I'm basically looking at my values, I'm leaving the business behind, I'm going into, being of service to people and helping people, and the psychological elements of humanity, and helping people understand their own needs and desires, and look at what's important to them, and to create a life that they want and that works for them. And you know, I use the tapping Faster EFT, but I use other tools which will mean that I'm really interested in the mind. I'm fascinated by Carl Jung's work. I'm fascinated by psychology and doing my own inner deep work, having my own psychoanalysis starting in the next couple of months for 1.5 years. So, you know, what do I value? What is important to me? Going on in the book, the evolutionary impulse that this process induces is an intense self-examination. So there you go, the, you know, wanting to do the psychoanalysis of myself, you know, and look at my own shadow and the shadow of humanity as well, because for many of us, we follow along. A lot of our beliefs are conditioned, a lot of our choices are conditioned, and for me, I want to evolve that, and I want to help people to release suffering through having to think they have to follow, you know, the norm, which is where we have been conditioned. So there, back to the book, through inner confrontation, the individual can eliminate and transform existing self-perceptions and the value associations which they are based upon. Because of this process, it's very common for the individual to experience an essential breakdown or loss of personal meaning. So that's interesting, because that loss of meaning probably happened for me in around, I would say, 2015, 2016. I was doing spiritual work, and that very much, I delved in very deeply, and it fell to bits for me. It's like, then I was thinking, well, what is the idea of God? And you know, who am I, and what do I want, and what is important? Then it goes on, life will not mean what it once did, and the inner sense of personal meaning will also change. Personal meaning is directly linked to personal values, which are directly linked to how one relates to oneself. This process demands that the individual confront the limitations in their value systems in order to evolve and grow in the new ways to relate to him or herself in new ways, and in doing so, to relate to others in new ways. The degree of intensity, conflict, resistance, and confrontation relative to this process depends on the individual's overall nature as reflected through his or her willingness or unwillingness to change. If the person's nature and value associations are relatively fixed, then the resistance can be quite strong with respect to the evolutionary impulse. On the other hand, if he or she or her nature is relatively open or mutable, then the resistance can be less severe. A simple clue to who can be found in this sign and the house. So it's what's found in that sign and the house. A simple clue, I'm going over myself there, but anyway, the planets ruling the 2nd house and 7th house cusps are additional indicators. So that's interesting for me, because so the 7th house cusp is actually Gemini for me. You can see here 7th house cusp. So the point there for me would be that I am Gemini, so really I'm mutable, I'm open to change, I'm questioning, I'm not fixed in that, I'm mutable air, and that's both my sun sign and my moon sign in Gemini. So in a way, I'm finding it quite interesting, and I'm finding the transformation quite easy. I'm enjoying looking at the psychology. I want to read Carl Jung's work. I want to look at the archetypes, the book he has, and there's a lot of enjoyment in this process for me. So I'm not shutting myself off. So, you know, it probably is a good placement for me. I will say also with Pluto, one last little tip and lesson here. If we look at Pluto, we have in the middle, we have what we call aspects in astrology. Okay, so these lines that you can see, the blue lines, the green lines, the red lines, they are all called aspects, and they refer to how the planets are actually communicating or speaking to each other or having a conversation. So for instance, Pluto there is, that red line goes to my moon, and that means that Pluto is square, which means that there's some tension between Pluto and the moon, which is my emotions, which means a particular aspect. It's a particular aspect that has a particular meaning. The other thing is that we can see that the sun, if we go to my sun, which is here, it's semi-sextile Pluto. So this means that there is a semi-sextile to Pluto, and that is measured in astrology. The more we learn, we'll understand aspects and the degrees and how far apart a planet is from another. It is so complex. It is like learning a beautiful language or a beautiful piece of music. It's never ending. You're always going to find something new in astrology. I've got something called Mercury sextile Pluto. So my Mercury is here, and it's a sextile to Pluto. So one would look at that as well. I've got Venus conjunct Pluto, or Venus, sorry, conjunction Pluto. Then I've got Pluto sextile my ascendant. Oh, I'm going a bit wrong here, actually. I'm reading somebody else's, going back to mine. But anyway, I do have Moon square Pluto. I'm not going to go back on this. I'm going to go forward. I'm going to go, so my Moon square Pluto. Then I've got Uranus conjunct Pluto. There you go. I'll see this as more learning for everybody out there. Then we've got Jupiter quintile Pluto. So Jupiter in my chart is here, and a quintile Pluto. Okay. Then I've got Pluto also trine Mercury. So my Pluto here is trining, so the blue line is trining my Mercury. And then the last one is Pluto conjunct midheaven. So Pluto conjunct midheaven up here with Uranus means that I am here to, you know, sort of bring something into the world. I sort of not quite sure what that is exactly yet, but I've got ideas the way I'm going. I'm learning astrology, I've learned Faster EFT, I've looked at Neuro-Linguistic programming. So there's so much that we can see from our chart and look at our own evolutionary journey. I hope you enjoyed that, and sorry for my little mess up on the, not really a mess up, all learning. We're all learning, but that little bit on the aspects, very fascinating. So we're not just looking at Pluto or the placement, we're looking at the transit, and we're also looking at the aspects of Pluto in our chart. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed that, and if you've got any questions or want me to look at your chart with you and look at how you can decondition some of your own stuff, then I'm quite apt and able to help people as I learn myself. Thanks for watching. Thank you.